It was a quiet evening in a small town where everyone knew each other, and nothing ever seemed to change. The kind of place where doors remained unlocked, and children played freely in the streets. But beneath this surface of normalcy, darkness had been lurking unnoticed, waiting for the right moment to emerge. A young woman named Sarah had lived in this town her entire life. At 27, she was independent, working as a librarian at the local public library. She was well liked, always polite, and never caused any trouble. But in the months leading up to her disappearance, something about her had changed. Her once bright demeanor had dimmed. She had become withdrawn, lost in thought, and seemed to be constantly looking over her shoulder. Her close friend, Emily, had noticed it first. "Is everything okay?" she had asked one afternoon. Sarah had hesitated, then forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired," she had replied. Emily hadn't believed her but decided not to push. She wished she had. On the night of Sarah's disappearance, she had left work as usual at 8 p.m. Security cameras showed her locking up the library, adjusting her bag, and walking toward her car. She had parked a little farther than usual, which was strange, but not alarming. She was seen unlocking her car and then she was gone. The camera had a blind spot, and in that crucial moment, it had failed to capture what happened next. When Sarah didn't show up to work the next morning, Emily knew something was wrong. She called Sarah's phone multiple times, but it went straight to voicemail. After an hour of trying, she drove to Sarah's apartment. Her car wasn't in its usual parking spot, and when she knocked on the door, no one answered. Her unease grew. She called the police. The responding officers took a missing person report but weren't immediately alarmed. Adults had the right to disappear, after all. Maybe she had taken an impromptu trip. But Emily knew better. She wouldn't do that, she insisted. Not without telling me. Days passed, and the town's unease grew. Flyers with Sarah's face were plastered everywhere. Social media buzzed with concern. The police finally took it seriously when her car was found abandoned 2 towns over, in a secluded parking lot near a hiking trail. The driver's seat was pushed back farther than Sarah would have needed it, and her purse was missing. Forensics found fingerprints on the door handle. Some belonged to Sarah, but there was another set that didn't match anyone in the system. There was also a partial shoe print near the car, a men's size 11. It was a start, but not enough. Then came the break in the case. A jogger had been running along a trail near where the car was found when he spotted something unusual, a phone lying in the dirt. It was cracked but still functional. When the police powered it on, they saw the lock screen. Sarah's face stared back at them. The phone was analyzed, and the last text message sent was to an unknown number. "I know what you did," it read. That was it. No reply, no further messages. Investigators pulled phone records, tracing the number. It led to a man named Daniel Cross. He was a 35-year-old who had recently moved to town, renting a small house on the outskirts. He had no criminal record, nothing that immediately raised red flags. But when the police knocked on his door, something about his demeanor set them on edge. He was calm, too calm. He didn't ask why they were there, only nodded as they questioned him. "I don't know a Sarah," he said. "I keep to myself." His alibi was weak. He claimed he had been home alone, watching TV, on the night of Sarah's disappearance. There was no one to confirm it. When asked about the phone number, he hesitated. "I don't remember," he finally said. "I get a lot of spam calls." It wasn't enough for an arrest, but it was enough for surveillance. The police kept a close eye on him, waiting. 2 days later, they caught him leaving his house in the middle of the night, carrying a large duffel bag. He drove out to a remote wooded area. The police followed. When they approached, he tried to run. It didn't work. He was tackled and handcuffed. The bag was opened. Inside was a shovel, a flashlight, and a bundle of rope. The ground near where he had stopped looked recently disturbed. When they started digging, they found Sarah. She was bound, but she was alive. Barely. She had been left there for days, weak and dehydrated. She was rushed to the hospital, where she whispered a name, Daniel. When she was stable enough to speak, the full horror came out. She had recognized Daniel weeks before, though she hadn't known his name then. Years ago, before he had changed his appearance, he had been involved in something terrible. Sarah had witnessed a crime, an assault in an alleyway, but at the time, no one believed her. The attacker had vanished, and the case had gone cold. But Sarah had never forgotten his face. And when she saw him in town, something clicked. She had started watching him, piecing things together. She found old news articles, photos, and finally, proof that he had been in the same city at the time of the crime. That's when she had texted him, "I know what you did." She hadn't expected what came next. He had followed her, waiting for the right moment. The night she disappeared, he had grabbed her before she could get into her car, forcing her into his. He had driven her to the woods, tied her up, and left her there, intending to return when the search had died down. Daniel was arrested, charged not only with Sarah's abduction but also with the assault from years before. DNA evidence linked him to the cold case, and with Sarah's testimony, there was no escape this time. The town changed after that. The illusion of safety was shattered. Doors were locked. Strangers were watched. And Sarah, though she survived, was never the same. She had uncovered the truth, but at a cost she would carry forever.